The Raptors fall to the Philadelphia 76ers 132-97 and lose the series in 6 games. Welcome to Raptors Night Cap. I'm Randy Urban. Tonight joined by Sherman Hamilton, Jack Armstrong, and Leo Rautins. Sherm, I don't think anyone expected a game like this. Just your thoughts to start off.
Big picture,
yeah.
It was a great season for the Raptors when you think about where they were probably midway, kind of coming out of the All-Star break. 2 bad losses and the way they rallied down the stretch. A lot of growth with this roster. We saw some young development. I mean, you saw Pascal kind of come into his own. Fred VanVleet's leadership. There was a lot of positives in this season. To your point, I didn't expect to see a win. I didn't expect to see a loss this emphatic. They did a good job to get themselves back in the series, and it's just another reminder. When you think about Game 3 and that one possession late. Could have easily get Game 4, and it's a 2-2 series going back to Philly. Who knows what happens? But I thought they competed extremely hard to get themselves back into contention in this series, and they have a lot to be proud of. Tough way to go out and end the season, but I think this organization has a lot to be proud of, and they grew a lot this season.
Jack?
Well, tonight's game, to answer you, I would say 2 things. Number one, Philadelphia protected the ball well tonight, and they were 4th best team in the league this year in terms of protecting the ball. They did it well in Game 1 and blew Toronto out. They had problems with it as the series went along. In the most important part of the game, the first 40 minutes of the game, they were excellent taking care of the ball. So the Raptors couldn't get the turnover margin game going, the fast break stuff. So that would be one thing. And 2, you miss a guy like Fred VanVleet shooting tonight. Clutch, the toughness, OG Anunoby getting in foul trouble early. Just obviously the 3-point differential, the shooting issue was a problem. But credit your opponent. They played really well. The guard play tonight of Harden and Maxey was absolutely brilliant. They had good balance. Danny Green made big shots. Hey, give them credit. They won the series. They earned it. But you know what? To Sherm's point, the Raptors were so close to winning Game 3. We could have been here tonight with the Raptors in a position to close the series. So it's been a great year. 48 wins, 2 wins in the playoffs. I can't wait for next year.
Leo, it seemed like the basketball world, the fans of the world, was hoping for history. They wanted a Game 7, and it seemed like nobody wanted Philly to win, obviously, except for Philly and their fans, but that can either...
Sure, they did.
Yeah. That can either galvanize a team or a team could buckle. It seemed like they were galvanized by, the notion that they weren't, good enough and they were going to kind of falter here in Game 6 and then Game 7.
Well, think about this. Philly at home, you're getting booed in the first quarter, right? Any slip up, you're getting booed by your crowd. So it's all, in my opinion, it's almost easier to come here where you're supposed to be booed on the road. You're supposed to be in a hostile environment, and there's less pressure. You get away from that, what you're dealing with at home, where also the anxiety, right? Like, you got to win. You guys, there was so much talk. So they came here and they played great. They came out, and I thought the Raptors came out relaxed. Yeah. I don't know how you guys felt, but defensively there wasn't that same intensity that we saw in the last couple of games. They came out shooting the ball well, and I think their defense relaxed. And Philadelphia did a great job of taking advantage of that. So, I mean, hey, give the Sixers credit. They came in, they did what had to do. But overall, yeah, you look back at the season, it was a pretty good season. If you think about all the question marks coming into the season and all the things, the variables that you had no idea what you were going to get with a lot of different guys, I think everybody rose to the occasion. It was a good season.
Sure, apparently Embiid told Maxey on the flight over, if Maxey isn't aggressive, they lose the series. He was aggressive, as a rookie or a second-year guy. To have the games that he did, you don't think he was going to sustain it, but to have that bounce back, that was huge for them.
Yeah, speed kills, and Tyrese Maxey has a ton of speed, and he really picks the pace up for this team. He really creates open court opportunities, and he put the Raptors, especially in the first 2 games, in a lot of compromised positions in the open floor because of his speed. And I think once the Raptors game planned for him a bit differently, they kind of held him down. And he's a young player. He's not going to adjust necessarily on the fly, but he did adjust in this game. And I think he's going to be a very, very good player in this league because, number one, he's got the speed. Number two, he can shoot it. It's not like you can just gap him and he won't make that shot. And the third thing is he has those floaters. And when you're a smaller player, and you guys know this, when you can hit that shot from 8 feet off of one leg, off the off leg, 2 feet push shot, all of a sudden now your speed can't be neutralized. And I think he's got that game already. So as a young player, I thought he adjusted to the series. And in this game particularly, I thought in that third quarter when they went on that 17-0 run, he was a huge part of it. He made multiple threes during that push. So Joel Embiid understands. James Harden, Tobias Harris, Danny Green, himself, they're going to play at a certain pace. Tyrese Maxey is an X factor, and he creates for everybody with his speed. So he talked to the right guy on the flight over here.
Jack, was there something that you noticed in the body language of Philly before the game or during the game that kind of gave you the same feelings that Leo was having? Like, okay, they're going to be in for a tough one here?
Two things. I thought, number one, when they reacted, Toronto came out great. Scotty Barnes and Gary Trent Jr. were excellent to start the game. And I thought they came right back to that. And I think they got Toronto into a drought in that first quarter. They went zone, and with Fred VanVleet being out of the lineup, I think and finally the Raptors figured it out with the zone. Chris Boucher was brilliant tonight. Yeah. He kept them in, and his activity level on the glass and the cutting and all that helped them. But to me, I just think that they were ready and committed to play more zone tonight and on the road and kind of take a little bit of rhythm out of it. And the last thing I'll say is I just thought that Harden played a great game as a lead guard. Maxey had a hot hand. What did he do? He kept getting it to him, and they protected the ball tonight. There were times I think it was funny. I was walking up here and I heard Tobias Harris and James Harden in the press conference as I was grabbing my coat to come up. And Tobias Harris and James were talking about the fact that sometimes they let up a little bit and they take things for granted and they don't respect their opponent a little bit. Tonight they came in dialed in and they were very cognizant of protecting the ball.
Leo, Raptors only had
coffee. Thank you, Leo.
15.
Gotta have coffee.
Coffee's great here, by the way.
Keep you up.
15 assists for the Raps, Leo, compared to 32 for Philadelphia. Did you feel like that was a byproduct of just a little bit too much one-on-one action to start the game? And then in the third quarter, you couldn't rely on that cohesive ball movement because you hadn't established that
the
early
ball
on.
wasn't moving. Yeah. I mean, the half-court offense was, spread out. The ball was finding Scotty Barnes for jump shots. Is that what the Raptors want to do? No. Right? So give Philly credit. But, for all the fans that jumped on the idea that, hey, no Fred, you're bigger, you're better. Calm down. Okay, that's a valuable lesson right there. You can be different because you're bigger defensively and you can do some things. But for the body of the game, you can't take an all-star out and think you're a better team. That's not going to happen, right? And you got to remember, the Fred that you watched at the beginning of this series was not the Fred, for the majority of the season. He's just not physically, he's not right. So, if you have a healthy Fred VanVleet, you maybe have a different outcome, right, in this series. And you got to give Doc Rivers credit. I thought that he's taken a lot of heat, especially the last couple of days with his response to some of the questions. I thought they made some really good adjustments to the Raptors that really helped them seal this game.
Where do you think Fred could have helped, Sherm? Because I noticed that even in the game that they won, there were moments where like, oh man, this is where
I know where you can help. Can you pass that vegetable
you got it
tray?
right here, buddy. Got some more wings over here too.
Thanks.
There were moments in Game 5.
Wings are for Jake later on.
Yeah. There were moments in Game 5 where I'm like, oh, they need Fred here, oh, they need Fred here, but then they would get bailed out by a jumper, a tough jumper. Didn't get bailed out this time. Where do you think he could have made an impact and maybe change the outcome of this one?
Well, the question would probably be better to ask where didn't I think he could have impact? I mean, listen, when you're in a
Write
game,
that down.
Yeah, you should. When you're in a game, and I feel this is so important, when things are going well, a player like Fred understands why they're going well. So he's going to make decisions in place to feed that process. And I think sometimes what you see with the Raptors are, it's a pretty free offense where, everybody has their opportunity. A guy like Fred says, okay, this is where the opportunity belongs right now, and we're going to play through this. Whereas without Fred out there, other guys may make plays and it may work, but how is this sustained? By a guy saying this is where we're going.
Well, like to my point, who got the shots in the second half? Fred would make that a different situation.
Right, and I was going to say this too. Now when a team goes on a run, a point guard like Fred understands how to organize his troops and how to get something positive offensively. So you don't extend it. Maybe it's a 6-0 run, a 7-0 run, 8-0 run, but it doesn't get to 17 because Fred has the ability to make a play to stop the run, whether it be defensively or offensively, getting the ball in the right person's hands, get to the free throw line, get a bucket, get a good look. That kind of, like you think about that run, if they stopped it at 8 points, who knows if Philly has that confidence and that swagger moving forward. So I just think that Fred helps on every level when you're talking about trying to compete at a high level with consistency.
And the crowd was into it right till the very end, too. So if it's only 8 or 9, it gives them a chance to get back into it. But, Jack, you mentioned Boucher earlier. Let's elaborate on that, because what a culmination in his season to have a game like this tonight.
Yeah, I think his you look at what his role was a year ago in Tampa, and then, he had a tremendous training camp and he got hurt. And then things changed a little bit. He got behind the 8 ball and he pressed and things weren't going well. And then he reinvented himself again. He had a heck of a year. And he's a heck of a competitor. And I tell you what, and we all do this, we all know the pro personnel guys and the pro scouts in the league. And too often, I think it's lazy on the part of pro scouts. They look at Chris and they just see his body and they judge the book by the cover.
They're afraid to go out of the box.
Correct. And there's a huge heart in there and a toughness. This guy's gotten better throughout his professional career. And I think he's a winning player. And I think he's a guy you want in your program. And to me, I was so happy for him. First impressions are lasting. Last impressions are lasting. And I think for him in his professional career, he made a good lasting impression. And
in a contract year, too.
Correct. And I think that he brings value to the Toronto Raptors. He brings value to the other 29 teams, too.
He impacted almost every game in the series, right? This wasn't a situation where, he comes in, game 1 he's good, game 2 is not so good, game 3, okay, game 4 great. That's the makings of a pro.
Yeah, when you're going to be a rotation player especially, you don't know necessarily when your name's going to be called. You have to understand when you hit the floor, you've got to bring everything you bring. And I think from an energy perspective, and Chris is an older player too, so he hasn't had his early 20s to impress the league. Late 20s, and this is a guy who's really got to do it in a short period of time. I think he's been great in terms of, when they'd say be a master in your role, be the greatest role player you can be, he fulfilled that. His energy, his determination, and his willingness to not rely on shooting the 3 for his only purpose to be on the floor.
Or just blocking shots,
he's
get position, take charges, all that.
He's bought in,
And there are a lot of guys that get drafted. There are a lot of guys that have maybe a bigger and better resume than him coming out of the University of Oregon, whatever it may be. There are a lot of guys with just better frames, the whole bit, that win the beauty contest. It's like the NBA Combine, the NFL Combine, vertical leap, this, that, all this nonsense. But you can't judge a guy's heart. And to me, I look at that guy, I want him on my side. If I got to walk down a dark alley, I want him with me because I know he's going to have my back. I just think he's a great competitor, and he's a guy that can be part of a team that can help you win. And is he going to be a starter in the league? Probably not. But can he be a good guy between players 6 and 9? I would say yeah.
What about Scotty, Leo? Because obviously the series changed when he was healthy, and tonight, I watched him just go at Embiid without fear. Like, not every play, but early on in the game, he was like, I don't care who's in front of me. that is, the future is bright for Raptor fans, for Raptor organization, for the people like us that cover them. Being able to watch a guy like that.
That jumped out on all of us right at the beginning of the season, right?
Yeah.
So it's like if I say to you right now, name me a post-up guy.
Joel Embiid.
No, he's not a post-up guy. He's a 7-foot. Name me a guy that'll take you down and post you up. Name me a guy. The fact that you can't name a guy right now, and I could go around the table, we'd all hesitate. We all would. We'd go like you go like, okay, because nobody does it anymore. He does it, and he does it well. He takes a smaller guy, boom. He goes at Embiid. He doesn't care. I love that aspect of his game, right? But here's the thing. Magic Johnson came into the NBA as the #1 pick. Magic Johnson couldn't shoot the ball. Within a year, you could not leave him open. Wasn't a great shooter, but was a more than competent shooter that if you leave him open, he's going to knock down the three or knock down the open jumper. And that opened up the rest of his game. And you can see what Philly did today. They said, Scotty, you take all the jump shots you want, right? That was a plan. It was intentional. You can get all the shots. And that's the next step for him. Everything else is fantastic. Everything. I mean, his defense, his attitude, his post up, his passing, everything fantastic. That's the next step. Make this consistent. Make this so reliable that nobody's going to leave you open. Your game goes to here. You're an all-star in this league, and a long-term all-star.
Good point.
You were going to jump in there? Or?
No.
He was, but I didn't let him.
Yeah.
No.
Because he's had too much coffee. That's why you see you can't. Coffee makes you.
It does. You nailed it, though. I mean, like that opens his whole world. And his mechanics aren't bad.
Mechanics aren't bad at all.
Pretty decent. So, what's interesting, too? If the Raptors become a little bit better shooting team, I think the pressure of when he does take the shots lessens a little bit on him. I think he can grow into that and be a respectable open shooter. I'll never forget, as a kid, I was at basketball camp and Brian Winters spoke.
He could shoot.
And Brian Winters could shoot. And he made a great point. Someone raised their hand and said, what does it take to be a pro? He said, you got to make open shots. He goes, very good players make semi-contested shots. Only great players can make contested shots. He said, but for me, I'm in category 1. I got to make my open shots. I think Scotty Barnes, if he makes, to Leo's point, his open shots, he's a great player because he can do all the other stuff.
Sherm, just real quick, I want to go back to the game, just from a mental aspect. The emotional stress of coming back from 3 love can accumulate game after game. And as much as people are saying, oh, there's no pressure, you start to get greedy, right? You start to get a little bit of pressure on the Raptors' perspective, because then all of a sudden they're like, oh, we can do this. And then there's the expectation. With expectation comes pressure. Just your thoughts on their attempt to make history and why it was so difficult.
Well, I would contend that as you come back, the margin for error becomes slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. And what we saw in this game was you have a couple of wins. You weren't perfect, but you did a lot of good things. Now it comes to game 6, and this is the game that Philly knows. Once this series gets tied up, it's anybody's game, right? Yep. And now for the Raptors, you're not freewheeling anymore. You have to do things well, consistently. And they hit that rut in the third quarter, and it changed the game. And this is, to me, you talk about a team coming back from a 0-3 deficit, there's no pressure. Well, the closer you get to evening this thing up, potentially, that's where it becomes pressure, and that's where the mistakes get magnified. And if you have any combination of mistakes, it can get blown out of proportion like we saw in this game. So the pressure might not have been there through, you win 1, you win 2, but getting to that third game, there's pressure.
So 2 days off in a row, too, you start thinking about it a little more, you maybe lose a little of the momentum.
I thought you were overconfident coming into this.
No, I wasn't.
I know. I thought you were.
No, I walked in.
So how did it end? Did he come around?
He's
no Scotty Barnes.
I came in gingerly.
No.
Do you want a piece of celery? Why don't you triple dip that?
Why am I the only one that ever eats? Can I ask that question?
You know what?
I think this is an important nightcap question.
Sherm's been waiting for me to feed him. That's the problem.
This is an important nightcap question. Why am I the only one that ever eats?
I'm eating cheese.
Huh?
I'll have a carrot.
Hey, Leo.
Thank you.
Leo, assess Pascal Siakam, because the last few games, I know today, 24, 7 and 7, he didn't have a 30-point game, which I think probably everybody was hoping for, but it wasn't for lack of trying. He was going after it today.
Look what Philadelphia did. They locked in on him, and that's why Scotty Barnes and other guys were getting jump shots. They said, Pascal, we're not going to give that to you. Now, he still had a good game, right? When the Raptors, turned things around, he was big on that early in the game. But hey, this guy had a great year. I mean, I don't think any of us knew what we were going to see from Pascal coming into the season. None of us. Was he going to be bubble Pascal? The guy that struggled in Tampa? The guy coming off a shoulder surgery? Nobody knew. Or was he going to be the guy that was rolling after Kawhi left before the pandemic started? Nobody knew which Pascal was going to be. Nobody knew. And he comes back with shoulder surgery, and all of a sudden you see him bang. And all of a sudden you're looking at a guy playing all NBA level, one of the toughest matchups in the league. And then the last 3 games, he showed he's that, right? He struggled a little bit the first 2 games, but again, normal, different role the whole bit. And he was an absolute stud. So, I look at him and what he showed us he's capable of, go, man, if you keep tweaking this team and that dude plays that way,
I loved his response all season long. I loved his approach. I loved how he dealt with the adversity all season long. Like, he was a different player, Jack.
Well, when you look at a guy that size, that's playing point guard. I mean, Sherm, you played the position. I mean, I think Nick,
right?
Yeah, you played. You're a combo guard.
Hey, but you know what?
You're a combo guard.
You know what people
I
don't.
just try to make him feel like he belongs.
You had a guy like Steve Nash in the back.
pretty good,
He's pretty good, but you played.
Right.
Yeah, but Jack,
you were a playmaker.
Both of you know when you're playing point guard and you're handing the ball, it's tiring.
Yeah.
So if he's got the ball in his hands an extended period of time, and he's expected to score and rebound and defend at his height. That's exhausting. And he handled that extremely well.
And for Fred VanVleet to be at his best, sometimes he has to play off the ball.
Yeah, just like Kyle.
Just like Kyle Lowry had to play off the ball. But the difference is now you got a 6'9" guy with the ball, and you got a little guy off the ball. And to me, and Scotty Barnes was in that position a lot this year too. So I think Nick Nurse's ability to be very creative forces development out of guys that is really significant. And to me, I think if you get a little bit more shooting on this team, the sky's the limit in terms of what you can do, and because you got a coach that'll scheme the heck out of it.
I say 3 things about Pascal. I know. He's just
talking.
mowing through it.
He's a machine.
I swear he hasn't eaten anything all day, but that's okay.
You're talking, and I'm like trying to hold it.
You can't
I haven't eaten all day. I worked out. Did the game. I haven't eaten all day.
That executive workout on the treadmill.
No, that's garbage.
I will say this.
I got swole today.
No. Three things about Pascal. Going into this season, I thought, number one, he had to work on the left side of his body. Finishing with his left hand. He had to be able to, he had that spin going to his right that was just unstoppable. But then teams started to stand on that side and he couldn't go to the other side. He figured that out. He was spinning left and he was finishing beautifully. So he grew. The other thing was I thought he needed to get stronger because when he went to that spin, he'd have to make contact. And once you made contact, he had to be able to maintain his line. And I thought last season when he got hit, he kind of wobbled a bit. Right. He got thrown off balance. This season he got hit, he maintained his line, he could finish with force around the basket, and I think that really eliminated defenders' ability to want to put the lumber to him. The third thing was Pascal, in those moments, because he needed to take that step to be that leader. In those moments, they needed him to make a free throw. They needed him to make the right play. He made a lot of right plays in those moments this season.
Yep.
So for me, he's grown in leaps and bounds. For Pascal, the next level is the consistency of being on that level. You know they're coming at you. Can you continue to deliver on that level? And I think he can. I just thought he grew so much this season. Moving forward, why not?
And you hit on 3 great points, and I go to the number 3. If you get better shooting around him, he's even tougher to cover.
And he's going to find those guys, too.
Really gotten better.
And now you got to guard a guy 6'9" with a 4 or 5 in this league that can get by you. He's got the
His
fast.
handle's tight.
Like, how do you guard that in space, single coverage with all these shooters? So if they improve organizationally from a shooting perspective, I think Pascal Siakam is at an even greater level.
And you know what? Like you mentioned strength. This is for all the young kids. If you're still up, ignore the coffee. It's not the bulk. It's not the bulk. It's strength.
He's wiry strong.
Wiry, and his legs have really become a big part of his game. You see, he's down. He's coming into you. The balance is there, right? It's the legs. He's done such a good job when he goes up in a shot. He's elevating. He's coming up. He's hitting you. He's rising, right? It's all coming from the base, and that's his balance. That's his strength. And we saw earlier in his career, he tried to get bigger, right? Then all this COVID stuff happened, and I think he's at a good place now where he understands, yeah, he's strong, but where does your strength come from during the game when you're playing? And he's showing that really well.
Going forward, do they need a more traditional center to plug in there at times?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, the way they play basketball, I don't think a traditional center is a necessity. I think what you're alluding to is a bit more size to deal with the Joel Embiids of the world, to deal with those
6 more fouls.
Yeah,
from a big
what
body.
I mean, that kind of thing. But I think they've got enough overall length as a team. They get the shooting. Could they add a piece that has size that can, like Leo says, be a guy who can get those fouls and can defend a little bit and rebound and intimidate the paint? Sure, but not necessarily a guy you throw it in there and you got to play off of him. I don't think they need that. I just think this team has done a great job of internal growth. They've invested in it. They've been able to capitalize on it, and they've gotten better over time by developing their talent and making their talent get better over the course of the summer. So I think that recipe still works. Obviously, when you don't get the ultimate goal of winning a championship, you got to do some things personnel-wise, which you're going to have to address. But they could use another bigger sized player, but I don't think the traditional low post guy is what they need. So this team has some good pieces.
Do you think we could use another host? Just curious, since we're talking about
Another
tweaking.
host or a different host?
A better host. I don't know. We're tweaking, right?
I'll have some more wings.
I think.
You haven't had enough.
When you say different,
We're talking about tweaking.
different would be better. It was one
Well,
of the same.
Yeah. What do you think, Jack?
We like him. He's a good guy.
No, we like him. Yeah, you're right. What the hell?
That's that coffee talking to you, Jack.
He's talking a lot.
Jack, you and me could just have a talk.
It's talking me out of me. How much longer are we doing
What
this
do you
show?
have,
This
coffee?
is like a double version of the show. What's going on here?
Real
He
quick.
doesn't want to go home.
No,
Obviously.
You're the only three friends I have.
Whoa. You didn't say we're your friends.
Precious Achua probably is.
We're workers.
Are we going to the whole roster?
No, this is last
like-
one. Last one.
Jack.
Goodness.
You got somewhere to be?
Yeah, we do actually.
Okay, last one. Precious
Indictment
Achua
on your question.
Hang on, Matt.
probably made the biggest
We've only been
improvement.
on the air for like an hour.
Probably
Jack,
made the biggest
we
improvement.
gotta go, right?
Leo gets paid by the word.
Precious Achua probably made the biggest improvement out of all the Raptors. When I look at this guy, I am super excited for what they have in him because, like, I see potential all-star in that guy.
You know, it's interesting. You say that. I would argue two guys. I would say him and Gary Trent Jr. because he's a two-way player now. And he was more of a gunner type in Portland. I think his game has become a little bit more polished and a legitimate NBA two guard who can play both sides of the ball. But I would say Precious Achua, I would probably give you that as probably the number one guy on that chart. And I tell you what, the thing that I love about him, his offensive skill is improving. And the guy can guard any position. He's quick. I'm okay. He's quick. He's
to wrap this show up.
athletic.
The show needs to be wrapped.
The show's getting off the head. But no, I'm really excited about where he's at, and I think he should be excited where
Strawberries.
he's
Where do
at.
strawberries come from? Did you see strawberries back here? Look.
I didn't see all that.
We'll get out on this.
Jamming up all the
strawberry? I
foods
thought
with
that
your
was
fingers now.
Good night.
Robert, one second. We'll get out on this. Robert,
have a question?
No, it's a comment. Nguyen from
Comment or
Facebook
a
says,
question?
"How are they drinking coffee at this time and then sleeping after?"
Well, you don't know if I'm sleeping after.
Oh, that's a good point. All
And
right.
you don't know if
We
he's
should-
drinking coffee.
We should do this again, though. Hey, we should do this throughout the rest
Well,
of
I
the playoffs.
look forward to doing it again
No,
in
like through
October.
the playoffs, or we should. Oh no, we should just hang out, maybe, or not.
Randy,
All right.
Randy.
Did he
Sure,
just
made
say
it
that?
clear. We're not
He
your
did
friends.
just say that.
Okay.
Okay, we work together. This is not friends.
You and I are friends, though.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
We're colleagues. We love you, Randy.
Thanks for doing this.
We
all
really
season
love
long.
Christian, by the way.
Yeah, I know, I
Christian,
know.
lots of love for.
Yeah. we really appreciate you guys.
You got a great
actually-
crew. You're going to recognize your crew?
I'm going to recognize them right now.
It's not about you.
First,
It's not
I wanna-
about you.
I wanna
Recognize
appreciate
everybody.
you
You don't have
guys.
to appreciate us because we're just here.
You guys are
It's
terrible.
the guys that do the work.
Give him the shout out.
Danny
Let's go.
Patterson,
Danny.
behind the camera.
Yeah.
Adam White doing
Adam.
sound.
Hey, White, what's up,
Street
boy?
Sound. Find him. Jake LaRue,
JK.
tech
JK.
producer,
Okay.
director, and creative producer Christian Urban.
Christian!
The better brother.
Wings for you. These guys. Hey, these are for you guys tonight. Here we go.
Oh, you didn't finish them, man.
That's so nice of you, Leo, to leave.
Oh shit. Here you go.
Here we go. Thank you so much,
Thank you
guys.
guys for doing the show.
No,
We will
it's
see
been
you
awesome.
next time.